Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Kevin Can F Himself, Season 1, Episode 4. It's called Live Free or Die. So spoilers for the episode as always, and this is a Patreon sponsored review, so thank you very much to Alison for making the pick. So this was an interesting episode, actually, because I thought the tone of this one, particularly towards the end, felt a bit darker than the previous episodes. I think this one is really kind of challenging the idea of, like, the mechanic the show uses to show Kevin's antics being the sitcom world. I feel at the end of this episode is actually poking at that a little bit and saying, hey, you see him as harmless because we're presenting it in a sitcom, but it's actually got a little bit of a darker undertone to it. And Patty kind of represents the audience a little bit in that sequence towards the end, that she's kind of surprised to hear Alison talk about Kevin's antics in the way that she is, and surprised to hear about how much it's hurt her and affected her. But I think this one does some interesting stuff with that. We don't have as much. We have the contrast of the two worlds still, because we're cutting backwards and forwards between them. But the Kevin plot with the others is very separate to everything with Alison, other than that he keeps trying to call her. He's got an escape room plot going on. He wants to do an escape room in his basement and promise people 10 grand if they can escape. So he makes an ultra convoluted plan to make it impossible. But once they do get people down there, they turn out to be geniuses who immediately start figuring all of his clues out, and he starts panicking. It's actually probably the funniest that one of the sitcom plots on its own has been. Not because Kevin himself is funny, but more just because this idea that it completely falls flat on his face the second that he actually encounters any resistance. But it is interesting, the theme of that story, though, right? That he builds an escape room, and even when they fair and square are going to figure their way out of the escape room, he cheats. He swallows the key. He makes up excuses. He blocks them from being able to leave. And then they end up trapped down there. The stove's on upstairs, or the oven's on upstairs, so there's smoke starting to go around. And the people eventually realize they can get out a window. And again, it's played for laughs because Kevin doesn't expect anyone can fit through it, but they all can because they're all slimmer than he is. So they all skedaddle. But that idea of an escape room, and then he doesn't want to let them escape, it's hard not to immediately take that idea and apply it to the marriage. This idea that he's got Alison, she wants to escape, and he always goes out of his way to make sure she can't escape, knowingly or otherwise. And I think the end of this episode is sort of leaning it more towards, no, he is kind of actually a monster, and like, in the way that he ruins anything that is just hers, because she doesn't have anything that's just hers. And the example she gives at the end of the episode is that she got a job a while ago that she was very happy about. She said, hey, do you remember when I got this job? And Kevin had convinced himself that she was having an affair with her boss, who was a married 60-year-old man. And despite how there was no reasons to suspect that anything was going on, he did a sitcom antics, which was he put sugar in the guy's tank, and it ruined the guy's car, and it got Alison fired. And, Alison says that she had something for her own she was proud of, and she liked that job, and he ruined it and took it away. And the tone of this is very, very different, because I feel like the real world stuff up until now, well, as obviously there's been moments of, like, danger, or Alison's in a position that could get bad if things go awry, or whatever. I would say that it's mostly still been kind of leaned towards funny, but like in a darkly funny way, right? It's almost like the irony of her reality versus the sitcom world, and how she's actually, taking a stand against it by stealing the hoodie, or stuffing her face with donuts, or all the antics, right? And even the plan to kill Kevin has been just kind of a darkly funny thing up until now, it felt like. I think this ending took all that and then challenged it in a way where it was like Alison's forcing Patty to actually see how miserable she is, and how Kevin ruins everything, and it's all about him. And I think the way, obviously, that the tone shifts dramatically is the running thing throughout the episode is that Kevin keeps trying to call her for inane things. Like, where's this thing? Where's that thing? How do you use the printer? How do you do this? He's trying to call her. And it becomes this thing where Patty's getting more and more tired and saying, just ignore him. Why is he still calling? Just turn the phone off. And Patty leans over eventually and turns her phone off and says, hey, phone time's over. He can't bother you now. And the result of this, the consequence of this, is that later in the episode, and this is after some things have happened, so there's other reasons why the police might be stopping them, but a police car pulls them over, right? And they're very scared because they happen to have a gun on them by this point. I'll get into that in a bit. But they're obviously terrified. Patty's scared, and Patty's already been questioned by the police this episode because of her association with the pharmacy guy, the chemist from last episode. So she's terrified, and Allison tries to sort of bring up her dad being a cop to try and get out of it and whatever. But it turns out the reason why they've stopped them is because the car's been reported stolen by Kevin. And it's put them through this scary thing, and she's like, hey, do we have to come down to the station? And the cop just kind of says, nah, I don't think there'll be a need for that. You've got the same last name, you've got the same address, like, this is not rocket science, clearly there's something here. Just make sure you call your husband and clear this up. But it does kind of, like, to go back to that moment from, like, an episode or two ago where the librarian said, why don't you just leave them? And Allison said, oh, because he'd find me. At the time, I kind of, like, that line felt a little bit extreme. I'm like, really? Would Kevin find her? I don't know. He seems like a bit of too much of an idiot to even try to look for anyone. Because he seems like a man baby who couldn't get out of his own driveway if he's not given clear directions. But this moment kind of painted a bit of a sinister undertone to that, which is that, no, like, she was gone for half a day, and he called the police, and she got pulled over, and, well, yeah, she was probably never going to get into any serious trouble, because it is literally her husband's car, and as the officer points out, same last name, same address, all these reasons why it isn't going to be a huge deal, but it does show, like, it felt sinister in a way that all the silly reasons he's trying to call her on the sitcom side don't feel anything but silly, right? They feel like silly things just to keep pestering her. Like, he's this nuisance, he keeps pestering her. But reporting the car stolen is actually very serious. Even if the consequences aren't going to probably be that extreme in this case, it feels like a very serious thing, this idea that he will use any of these resources and do extreme things to keep her in place. And it's not even like he presents it as he thinks she's ran away. I mean, he makes a joke about, oh, I thought you'd been Liam Neeson taken and you're in the back of a car and some murderer's going away with my car. And again, it paints it as very selfish, of course. Like, he's constantly very selfish. If nothing else, like I think we can read into like how much of a monster Kevin is, and he probably is, honestly. At this point, it feels like we're really starting to hint at a lot of things. And certainly the way that he's perhaps controlling, or at the very least sabotages Allison's life at every juncture. So that she feels that she doesn't have anyone around her, she doesn't have anything around her, anything that just belongs to her. She doesn't have her own car, she doesn't have her own house, all of her savings are gone, all these other things. And I think it's a very good scene at the end. One, because it felt like the actress here, Annie Murphy, really got to act, right? She really got to like sell the pain of all this beyond just the, again, kind of the quiet, darkly funny misery that she's had in a lot of the real life stuff. And not to say there's been no moments of realism. Like, some of the moments where she's quiet and she's on her own do feel very real, actually. But typically when she's interacting with other characters, she's putting on like kind of a brave face to an extent, and it comes off a bit differently. And I think Patty's reaction to all this, who, you know, bonds a little bit with her throughout, right? She actually appreciates a joke that Allison made about killing Patty's mother when they were kids because she wanted her trucker dad for herself. And Patty makes a couple of references to it. Hell, Allison bonded with me this episode. She brings up that she likes slasher movies. They make a bunch of Jason and Freddy references. And Patty may also like slasher movies. So honestly, these ladies are endearing themselves to my heart, honestly. But that kind of like is, you know, them kind of bonding in like a very normal, like we're getting to know each other a little bit. And then all this at the end, the bombshells, and the thing that really makes it feel like Patty's a conduit for the audience here, other than just she's getting the serious side of this, is Allison just straight up accuses, hey, like, what do you mean you don't know Kevin's like this? You remember some of this stuff. And she says, you know, she literally shrugs and says, it seemed harmless. Because to the outside, maybe it does seem harmless. Maybe from the outside perspective, you know, maybe you even know a couple where one of the people in that couple is at least emotionally abusive. Maybe not physically abusive, maybe not even actively, like, outspokenly abusive, but does things that is abusive. And it seems harmless from the outside because it's presented in a certain light. And the way the show presents it is in the sitcom world, which is, hey, oh, the Allison and Kevin, they're that wacky couple, and he's always doing those silly prank things and weird things. Oh, isn't that a laugh? But she's actually in hell living with this guy. It's awful. And I think her shrugging and saying it seemed harmless, but the performance, and this is a credit to the actress, is clearly saying that she's realizing as she says that it isn't harmless. You can see it on her face as she says it seemed harmless. She knows now that it isn't. And it's what makes the response kind of awkward. She knows that she's kind of almost justifying like her lack of a reaction in hindsight, right? And she's like, hey, you know Kevin, you've known him for 10 years, and he's always been this way. He takes everything that's mine, and I have nothing. And like the way Patty stands there, and mostly quietly, right? There's a couple of lines, obviously, but mostly she takes this in, and it just cuts to her reactions as Allison gets the monologue. I think her realizing, oh, like, she hates being with Kevin. This isn't just, oh, like, a little tiff, or she's kind of sick of her husband. No. She hates being with, and this leads to the final moment of the episode, which is, Patty says, wait, so you're dealing with all this stuff you're going through by getting into trouble and owing this guy pills, and Allison just straight up confesses, I don't owe anyone anything. The pills are for Kevin. I'm going to kill him. And the episode, funnily enough, actually ends with the song that is the ringtone that played every time Kevin tried to call her, but now it plays for real as we go into the credits. The last 5 minutes of this episode are fantastic, right? The last 5 minutes are perfect. And the rest of it's fine. Like, the rest of it's a solid enough episode. It's doing some little character things. Like I said, the sitcom thing is actually kind of funny in some places. Again, not because of the dumb characters, more because of how everything falls apart. But thematically, it all felt like it fit in perfectly with the serious point that was being made at the end, is this idea of Kevin's like, hey, there's an illusion of being able to escape, but he's not going to let you escape. It's not like super deep analysis or anything. I think it's pretty surface level, but goddamn, it works. And it makes me, I think, wonder about more of these sitcom plots going forward, and how much of it am I going to be able to try and kind of relate to how he actually is with her, or how she feels about him, and how that's maybe represented in his antics in the sitcom plot. So yeah, it's I think this, like, I don't know if is it the best episode? It may be the best. Like, I feel like the pacing of this episode's not maybe as strong, just because it is, like, the two characters in a car and they talk to a couple of drug dealers. Like, I don't know if that necessarily is the most exciting plot line compared to some of the other episodes we've had so far. But the last 5 minutes are definitely the best 5 minutes of the show so far. Like, I think I would happily say that. And I think it's a sign that this show has, like, it's not just a gimmick where we've got this sitcom sort of stylized segments and then the stuff that isn't. It's not just the gimmick that they're built a show around. They've got a place where they clearly want to go with this. And the sitcom thing is there to represent how everyone handwaves his behavior. And I think that is becoming more solidified with each episode, and that's good. Because there was a little bit worry after one episode, which the first episode was good, and I had a lot of hopes and there was potential there. There was a little bit of a worry that it might just become a bit of a one-trick pony, and it might just kind of rest on this idea, isn't it funny that we're shifting and we're showing how horrific these characters are? If you actually had to put up with a sitcom character in real life, like it's all funny in games to laugh at the pranksters on a sitcom when you're sitting in your house, but if you actually have to live with that person or live next door to that person, how much is it actually ruining your life because they're doing silly things that are funny on TV but not in real world? It could have built a show just on that broad idea, and it would have effectively been probably a fun little show. This feels like it's saying something a lot more serious now, and the hints were there over the last couple of episodes, I think, but I think this episode really, like, brought it to the forefront and said, no, we're staking a claim here, and we're at a point now where we're more emotionally invested. And I think the genius part of this is that last episode spent a lot of time with Patty, making her into a full-fledged character, right? She'd been there before, but last episode really turned her into the co-lead of the series. Because of that, this episode, her being the one to be shocked and surprised at what's going on with Allison and Kevin and her reaction to it, felt so real because they made her feel real first. And I think that was the structure and genius of this, and why they put that first. That's really good. And then obviously before that, you've got the bonding, because Allison's actually just buying pills off a random trucker, although I thought that maybe they were going to do a thing where Allison actually gets on a truck and Patty has to go track her down and find her to bring her home. But it turns out, no, she's just buying pills, but Patty thinks this is the guy that's chasing her, because she still thinks that Allison's been chased by, like, a drug dealer who wants his pills or something. And she, like, hits him with the gun in the back of the head, and Allison has to explain to Patty, oh no, this is just the guy I was buying from. Like, this is not the dude. This is not him. And they run off and skedaddle, and that's why the tensions are so high when the cop car pulls them over, because that just happened. So yeah, I mean, I think by that point it kind of shows that Patty's going out of her way to, like, help Allison and protect her, right? So even if she's still going to say things like she doesn't care about her, she still acts like she doesn't like her. Although, again, that's not as thick this episode. She kind of admits that she kind of likes her previously. They bond a little bit in the car, but, this is showing that she's going out of her way into a dangerous situation because she thinks Allison's in trouble. And likewise, Allison is scared for Patty earlier on when Patty goes into the woods to talk to a drug dealer and ultimately comes back with a gun. But there's a little moment when the two drug dealers are coming back on their own, and, like, Allison's, like, really concerned that something's happened to Patty. And then she comes, up maybe like 5-10 seconds later, and it's not actually anything has happened, but there's just a little moment of, like, natural tension there where Allison is worried that something has went awry. So yeah, I mean, they did a good job making them bond and making, like, them feel even more fleshed out as characters. And, Allison, I think, feels more fleshed out as a character after this episode. It almost felt, and this is almost like a weird meta bit of narrative, it almost felt like up until this final 5 minutes, she was still kind of defined by her relation to the sitcom parts of the story, right? Almost like, even though we were following her in the real world, we still think about her character so much tied to that and how it contrasts, that's kind of all we really thought about. I think this last 5 minutes, it stopped just being, oh, the killing Kevin is just the thing that we're doing to have plot, and more, oh, I'm actually investing now in how much she cares about wanting to kill him and why she feels that strongly now. Before, it felt like almost sitcom logic. Oh, she's sick of him, so she wants to kill him. And it didn't really feel like it was any deeper than that. This episode was like, no. She hates him. Like, the title of the show is making more and more sense with each passing episode. And she is ready to genuinely maybe kill this guy. So that is, I think, it's impressive how it's blossomed, I think, over these 4 episodes. And this final 5 minutes is, I think, the peak of that. So, great stuff. I mean, I really have nothing bad to say about it. Like I said, like, maybe some of the going around and talking to drug dealers maybe is a little bit repetitious, but it's not by a great extent. There's some fun stuff along the way, like the teenager who says he can show them where to go, and he gets them to pick up his girlfriend, and they're just kissing in the back seat. And Patty says, "That's it, get out the bang bus." That gave me a chuckle. Like, I think all the building blocks to get to the ending are perfectly solid, but that last 5 minutes really kind of knocked out of the park. And the sitcom side of things, which again, Kevin not even acknowledging anything Allison says to him, like forgetting that she says multiple times before she goes, "Hey, I've got the roast in the oven. It needs to come out in 5 hours. Don't burn down the house." And he doesn't listen to her. He forgets multiple times that she's even taken the car. So she turns around and gets Alexa to set a timer. And when that timer eventually goes off later in the episode, when they're trapped in the basement, he's like, "Why is Alexa going off? Well, that's weird." And he doesn't remember why. And then it's not until he smells the smoke where they start debating what that might be. And he's like, "Who put something in my oven? Oh, I bet it was Allison." It takes a lot of steps to get there. And I think it's, again, just another example of him not, like, again, being the center of his own world and not caring or putting her needs anywhere. And obviously, forgetting that something's in the oven isn't actually the biggest deal in the world. It's more emblematic here of just that he's like that with everything that she says. Like, he doesn't remember anything. He hasn't, anytime it's like, "Oh, why doesn't she have something?" And he's like, "I'm the gift that keeps on giving." Like, he said that at least a couple of times already in the course of 4 episodes, which is a very high amount to say it in 4 episodes. So, yeah, the show's clicking. Obviously, the Patty being questioned by the detective, it feels like that's not over. It feels like there's going to be a bit more to do with that. There was no Sam this episode, so curious to see, where we go with that beyond here. But yeah, no, it was a good episode. I really liked the end of this one in particular. I thought it added a lot more nuance to the characters and added a darker undertone to everything, which, when it cut to Kevin and it's this close-up of him on the phone, the payoff, of course, is that he's stuck in the window trying to get out of the basement, but you get this like tight close-up of him just answering these lines. And yeah, I did feel differently, because this is like after she's just had that conversation with Patty, and I found myself looking at Kevin differently. I found myself feeling a little bit more disturbed by him, even though nothing had really changed in the sitcom side of stuff. All of a sudden, it's like you find out someone is like secretly like a really bad person, right? Pick whatever it is that makes everyone look at them funny. But it's like you found out someone's a really bad person, and now you're looking at them like, I don't know if I can laugh at your antics anymore. Not that I was really laughing at Kevin's antics that much, to be honest. They weren't very good, by and large, right? And I think that was intentional. But like, it's almost impossible to laugh at his antics now, because now all we get is, we get this sense of what he's done to another human being, what he's done to his wife. And I think that's a really like genius stroke of like handling of your tone and handling of your narrative to make me feel that much of a difference in a really simple little moment like that. So full marks. Really like the end of this episode. This has been episode 4 of Kevin Can F Himself. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff helps out a bunch if you can. And of course, if you want to support everything, you can do that over at Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Thanks to everyone who already does. It does make everything possible. And check out MailFuzz Movies, where all the movie podcasts live. But that is me. Thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?